Hey everybody, Alyssa here, and
Ariel from Maven Unmasked.
yay!
Yay!
Welcome to Mystic Minds. This is episode
Number
4.
four. Yeah.
Wow, moving along, moving along.
Yes, moving along. Today we are going to be talking about shadow work, and it is October, so it is the perfect time of year to do so.
Agreed. It's almost like because the veil feels thinner and like everything kind of feels a little bit closer. Everything kind of feels a little bit more raw too. So it's a good time to take a look at what's going on within yourself and see what you feel that you need to work on personally. So I think you found a brilliant quote that was like the best way to describe shadow work, I think.
Yes. So if you're interested in learning more about shadow work, I highly recommend checking out the work of Carl Jung. That is spelled C-A-R-L, last name Jung, J-U-N-G. He is the father of shadow work, I would call it, and he was a Swiss psychologist who really focused on the personality, traits, archetypes, the collective unconscious, all of those things. So he says, there is no coming to consciousness without pain. People will do anything, no matter how absurd, in order to avoid facing their own soul. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. He also states, how can I be substantial if I do not cast a shadow? I must have a dark side also if I am to be whole. So to me, that really speaks of the duality in all things. Just like there's the divine masculine and the divine feminine, the yin and the yang, the light and the dark, the sun and the moon, the day and the night. Everything has a polar opposite, a polar and equal opposite. So I think the shadow is just really recognizing those darker aspects, those darker patterns, those themes, recurring themes in our life that may be challenging for us or that we are encountering over and over and over again. The dark, scary parts of ourself that we would rather not look at because of fear or pain or trauma or just so much emotion involved.
Yeah, it's looking at that rawness, and it's always very hard to do. And like I can give you guys an example of my journey. My husband and I moved out to the East Coast, not knowing anybody, anything. We had to rent our apartment sight unseen. Like it was just a whole new adventure coming from someone who grew up in Washington State and lived there my whole life. Like I had visited other places and, but it's only been like a week, 2 weeks, here and there. So for me, it was like, part of my journey with my shadow work has been like getting to know more of who I am removed from my, I don't know how would you say it, like not like childhood home, but necessarily, in a way, yeah, childhood home, but it was getting to know myself outside of what others are seeing me as and what I was always known to be. So it was a way for me to kind of spread my wings. Like, a lot of people when they move out of their home, they like, you have that kind of, okay, it's really for real now. But it wasn't just like my husband and I had lived together for years before we actually like moved out here. So, for me, it was very, very interesting in the fact that I had to get to know me. I had to be able to be comfortable being by myself, not having anybody, like I couldn't just call a friend and be like, hey, do you want to go get some coffee? Because, I'm kind of feeling low today, or, I just kind of feel overwhelmed. I had no other, I had no friends. I had no distractions. I really had to get comfortable looking at who I was. So for me, this was like one of the more raw pieces of doing some shadow work in myself, was that I need to know who I am without the influence of friends or family or anything, but just who is Alyssa on the inside. So that's really been like one of the core principles for me of doing shadow work, is just turning within and just getting comfortable with all those things that you've had distractions from before. So, not that we don't work through our things if we have our family and friends around, but when you are forced to be isolated from that for the most part, you really do have to like figure out who you are, build up who you are, and just look within and see like, this is a new adventure, this is a new start, but what's going on within me. that's going to help me understand myself and, who am I projecting to be to the society as well. So it's just a lot of inner looking and inner work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for me, I can relate to a lot of that. For me in particular, I went through a very traumatic period in my life. My shadow work in my life is mostly based around self-esteem and self-worth. I came, from a lot of sexual trauma and domestic violence in relationships with significant others in my life, and having to navigate not only my way out of that situation, but it's something that's constantly been reoccurring in my life. Not necessarily that I'm in that same situation, but some of the same feelings and themes of learning how to stand up for myself or standing in my power. Learning that I am enough. I don't need someone else to make me feel secure and okay. About learning that it's okay to be by myself, to know that I'm worth so much more. And then all of the other things that come with trauma of that kind, the fear, the anxiety, all of that. And then on top of that, noticing all of the patterns in how it plays out in my other relationships. So even in my working relationships or my friendships or whatever it is, there's still always little hints of that. So standing up for myself, expressing what I need to say, not holding that in, feeling like I have a voice. And even to the point where, in other relationships, seeing projections of myself reflected back to me and others, where I think as you grow in your shadow working journey, you begin to be able to notice those things and those nuances as they're happening in the moment. So I could be with somebody and they could be doing something and it's getting on my nerves, and I'm like, okay, but what does that say about me? Or, was that something that I used to do? Oh, I used to do that, and really taking that, because that's a gem from the universe, is to be able to see that, taking that and working with that. So there's many different areas of shadow work as well. You could be working with fear, working with assertiveness and self-esteem, self-confidence, your inner child. If you felt abandoned as a child, or like your voice wasn't heard, or isolated and alone, abuse, trauma. We talked about relationships, whether they be friendships, romantic partnerships, business relationships, ego and pride as well.
Yeah.
There is shadow work associated with that. Why is there the need to be boastful or to over-explain?
Why do you always have to puff up your chest kind of thing? Like, we got to be the better one.
Yes.
Which is kind of like the underlining of insecurity on something. So it's putting up that brave front.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think a lot of, things with shadow work, self-harm, depression, anxiety, lack of motivation. But I think a lot of it is trying to fill yourself up with stuff that's outside of you to make you feel better. So for ego and pride, I have to boast about how great I am, or I've done this, or I've done that, to fill something within me. Or if you had the drug problem or alcohol problem, taking in those substances to fill this void within you. What were you lacking? Maybe there's a fear of getting close to somebody. Maybe there's a fear of intimate relationships. Perhaps you were abandoned as a child and it's hard for you to get close to people. So try to connect the dots in that way. How is something that happened to you now playing out in a different way in your life now?
Yeah, there's a couple things I wanted to talk on that, because you had two super good points in there. I really like that you're talking about the substance, because it's not always drugs and alcohol. Sometimes we overeat.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? We're trying to, literally we're trying to fill a void that's only temporarily fillable. We feel okay in the moment that we've done that, but then afterwards we're still feeling that emptiness, because you're trying to fill it with something that is not, from my opinion, of more of your soul and who you are. And mirror work, you're saying that people mirror. That's honestly, how many times have we been at work with somebody and you're like, this person drives me crazy, they do this annoying things or whatever, and then you have to
check yourself.
Yeah, like, a lot of it is like if I see something that bothers me on the outside, I immediately am like, what's that reflecting within myself? Because that is a gift.
It's a trigger. Something has triggered your anxiety or your anger or your stress, you know, and where does that trigger really stem from?
Yeah. Exactly. So it's always like, it's always something that you're working on within yourself. It could be like, say, you feel like you're super competitive with people for some reason. It's like, so that to me is almost like a sense of self-worth wound that you're working on, that you can stand alone and be similar to somebody else, but you don't have to be better than somebody else, because we all still bring our own unique gifts to the world. So you're going to be similar to many different people, but you're also going to be very unique to those people as well, because you are who you are. No one is made exactly the same. So you can have plenty of things that reflect, that are beautiful, but you also have to look at those things that reflect and that trigger within you. And that's a great way to notice that's a piece of shadow work that I get to work on. Yes. And they don't heal that easy sometimes. Yes, no. So it's not a bad thing. You know, to, like, I know myself, I'm still working on, like, quite a few bits of shadow work.
Yeah, I don't think you're ever really done with shadow work. I think it's a lifelong journey, you know. If anyone's ever seen the anime Bleach, it totally makes me think of the Hollows in Bleach. They're souls who, you know, have passed, but they're still on Earth. They have, you know, a chain attached to their chest because they're chained and bound to this world because of certain things, certain shadow aspects within themselves. They have a hole in their chest, and they have to eat the souls of others because they're constantly trying to fill an empty void. You know, so no matter how much they eat, it's still empty. Yeah. You know?
And in reality, like in my perspective, in reality, everything is going to reflect back onto you. So the things you say to other people reflects back onto you. The things that you do reflect you. So everything that you work on is really a reflection of you. So, you know, I don't know anybody in this world that is not, like, got something that they're working on. We all have some sort of shadow work, or we have something that we are working on within ourselves that is the ability to help feel more complete and whole. And then, you know, in this human existence, it always feels like we're never enough. And we always, like, kind of have this, like, I need more, I have to do this or whatever. Like, and then especially, like, I just want to throw this out there, like, the fashion industry, like, I feel like they're very much, like, a really big aspect of the shadow side of society, because it's always trying to look better than somebody else, or like, you know, I always got to step on.
You need space between your thighs. You know, the new trend is, you know, whatever, and you have to have this particular kind of body, like, to wear it, like the waist trainers and all of that stuff.
Instead of accepting, like, the beauty of each person. Not everyone's gonna be, like, size 0. Not everyone's gonna be.
That's part of my shadow work. It took me years to accept the fact, playing the comparison game between how I looked versus how people I went to school with looked. Little story about me. I went to Catholic school. Most of my school academic career, I was the only African American, or one of very, very few. So I found myself a lot comparing myself to how everybody else looked, or that I wasn't a stick figure, or whatever it was. And coming to terms with the fact that that is just not me, that is not my body, no matter how much I don't eat, no matter how much I exercise, no matter what I do. That is just not how my body is built. And learning how to accept that and love myself and my body for who and what it is. Yeah. You know?
Well, and you're a beautiful person. You're very unique into who you are. And
I love myself now. I used to hate myself.
I mean, I always viewed myself as being, like, overweight. I mean, even when I was like, I look normal. I look at pictures and I'm like, I thought I was fat. You know, and I, like, look at myself now and I'm like, girl, I was crazy. I was crazy. But I've come to the point now where I'm like, I don't care what weight I am. I'm still going to wear what I want. I'm going to be comfortable in who I am, because the outside of me is not necessarily who I am. It's how I express myself, and it's you know, how I treat people and all that and stuff. So it's like, for me, it's just like love yourself for who you are. You know, even love your flaws. And you can see it as a flaw, or you can see it as not a flaw. It's up to you. But, you know, love yourself for who you are. And shadow work in the spiritual community, I really just want to put this out there, is this, like, spirituality is not always like sunshine, rainbows, unicorns. It's all light all the time. It's a very cathartic, peeling away process in my experience. So it's, you know, what's the right words to say this? It's getting to know who you are. It's like peeling an onion, getting to know like who you are, like the deep, like my guides are like an onion, they're like showing the layers.
Yes, I was like,
it's peeling and peeling and peeling and peeling and getting to know who you are. And then for me, I've just noticed the more and more that I'm peeling away, the more and more I'm accepting myself, and the more and more I'm realizing just how much I'm similar to so much around me. So I feel like there's much more unity than I had thought before. So for me, it's just like spirituality and the shadow work has just been a tougher process, but it's also made me happier because I have become more of the light that I know that I am on the inside. So yeah.
I would say very much the same. And shadow work a lot is based on judgments, what you think others are judging you as, how you're judging yourself. I do want to say this, be kind to yourself in your journey with shadow work. Especially if you find yourself in a situation, you're like, I keep doing the same thing over and over. I keep being in this enabling situation, or I keep being the martyr or the victim or taking on too much responsibility. Why am I keep going, through these cycles over and over and over again? Try not to beat yourself up and be gentle with it. As you peel back the layers, you'll begin to connect the dots and see, okay, now I understand myself a little bit better. So I understand my triggers a little bit better. So when a situation arises, I can pull myself back from it and then be able to work through it in the moment. But, be gentle with yourself in the unfolding, and know that, once you start working with the shadow work, it's not just going to transform and change overnight. This is a years-long process, depending on what area of shadow work, depending on how deep the trauma is, whatever it is. So just be patient and gentle with yourself. Make sure if you're going to embark, on this journey, have support around you if possible, whether that be a friend or a therapist or a mentor or somebody that you can just confide in if you need to, even if it's just an online, friend from Facebook or something. Be sure to ground yourself and shield yourself to keep yourself energetically protected and safe and grounded, and make sure to clear yourself and your space before you begin the process and after you say, I want to work with my shadow for an hour today. Clear yourself in your space before, clear yourself in your space after, because shadow work, you are releasing things, so you want to make sure you keep that energy clear and flowing as you're releasing.
Agreed. And it's like my guides have been talking to me a bit more about like mirror work. And so on my website, greenlightmessages.com, I do have a channeling from May. It's called The Cracked Mirror Reflections. And this is part 1, and I actually have just channeled part 2 that's going to come out Monday, about working with shadow work, about using the mirror specifically to look within yourself and work through shadow work. So that's a tool. Like, we're going to start talking about tools, sorry. A tool for shadow work. It's, for me, I find it's very, very helpful, but it's also like you will probably look in the mirror and you have to allow yourself to be in that space of vulnerability. Allow yourself to be vulnerable with yourself. You don't always have to like put on the brave front or, I'm so afraid. Call in your guides, call in the, angels, Jesus. I don't know who you work with, but there really is, if you have guides that you feel that you are really drawn to, then they make you feel loved and protected and safe, call them in. There's no wrong answer there. But allowing yourself to be vulnerable and looking within has been really, really powerful. And I know for me, like, when I started doing my mirror work, I cried like every time. I just looking in my eyes and just started crying.
Years of crying over here.
And it's like, it's like, I'm sure on the outside it would probably look hilarious seeing someone who's like in the mirror just like sobbing, but at the same time it's like, this is a way for you to help peel back those onion layers.
Yes. Tears are cleansing. I always feel this. Tears are salty for a reason. Salt purifies and cleanses. Tears are cleansing. Also, an addendum, so a little shameless plug here as well.
Yeah, definitely.
I am offering on MavenUnmasked.com and also on my Etsy shop my Samhain and Halloween reading bundles, and I do have one in particular that is geared towards shadow work. It's called my Samhain Shadows reading bundle. So it's three card readings all about you and your shadow working process. And then I also have my Witchy Wonders bundle and my Shapeshifter reading bundle as well. But if you're specifically looking for something geared towards shadow work this Halloween, this Samhain, this October, check out my website, MavenUnmasked.com, or the Maven Unmasked Etsy shop and look for the Samhain Shadows reading bundle.
That's awesome. Because sometimes, we may think that we have a piece of shadow that we've already worked through, but then something comes up in a reading and you're like, oh, I didn't fully work through that yet. So getting a reading from somebody else from that's always helpful too. And you're talking about doing it with tarot. So do you have any recommendations for tarot decks?
Yes. So tools of shadow work. I'm the tarot nut over here. So, and there are many more tarot decks you can use to work with your shadow. But these are just a few that I just can think of off the top of my head. So the Zombie Tarot, excellent deck for shadow work. I really enjoy it. The Santa Muerte Tarot, it's new to me, but I have the review on my YouTube channel if you want to check it out and see what it looks like.
It's really cool. Check it out.
Really cool. But great. I think I'm going to love using it for shadow work. Deviant Moon is a good shadow work deck. For me personally, it was too intense. It made me very unnerved and uneasy. That's why I'm preferring the Santa Muerte or the Zombie Tarot for me for shadow work, but people love Deviant Moon for shadow work, so that might be up your alley. There's also the Chicoli Tarot. I think that's great for inner child shadow work. There's also the Dark Goddess Tarot, the Marielle Tarot. There's Tarot of the Vampires, Bohemian Gothic. There's a lot of tarot decks available for shadow work. There's also some oracle decks that are great for shadow work as well. The Sacred Rebels Oracle by Alana Fairchild, I think, is so fabulous for shadow work. As I'm talking about this, I'm hearing the Kuan Yin Oracle, but not the regular one, the Wild Kuan Yin Oracle.
I haven't seen that one.
Oh, it's beautiful. So Spirit is giving that to me in the moment, so that's for somebody out there. Also, the Heal Yourself reading cards. Those are fairly new to me, but I feel like they are just so powerful for shadow themes and have been for me so far in my working with them. And then there's Jasmine Beckett Griffith. She also has some decks, but the Oracle of Shadows and Light is a pretty potent shadow work oracle as well.
Cool. I know a couple that I have used. For me, the traditional, like Rider Waite's always, it's a classic. I feel like it's because we know it so well. There's certain things that you can read into the imagery. But then for those of you who want to like maybe start out on a little bit of a softer side, I found that the Sacred Tarot for the Heart by John Holland, published by Hay House, is been a really easy way to get into working in some shadow work that maybe you feel super, super, super emotional about immediately. So it's like it's a softer way to get in. And then sometimes, you really want those decks that have a little bit more of the darker imagery.
And darker colors, yeah.
Yeah, because they're all very useful tools. So
sorry, as you were showing this, it was like all of a sudden it popped in my head as well. Chakras.
Yeah.
Chakras and the shadow. Looking into that may be very, very helpful. is your root chakra like? Is it balanced or imbalanced? Is it overactive, underactive? Checking in with all of your chakras, because those can be also a good point of where to start with your shadow work. Do you have a lot of guilt and shame about something? Maybe that's that solar plexus. Maybe working with strengthening, releasing things from your solar plexus can be very helpful in dealing with the grief or the guilt, the shame aspects of the shadow. Okay. Abandonment issues, working with the root chakra, safety and security. So don't, be afraid to look into other areas of ways to help you through your shadow work. But I definitely think chakras can be very beneficial in doing so.
Yeah, especially because each one kind of holds a more unique energy about being human and the things that we go through. And, I find that crystals really help me work through my shadow work. And, one that's been super, super helpful for me personally has been the yellow kunzite. And you guys can see I've been doing a learning and working with crystal series, and I'll leave the link in here. And we talked about yellow. Oh, thank you. We talked about yellow kunzite and some of the a couple other crystals that we're going to talk to you guys about. So you can always head on over there if you want to learn more about them. And yellow kunzite's really great, especially for the solar plexus. Those wounds and shadow work related to that solar plexus. And the kunzite itself is really great because it's got the lithium, which kind of helps with that anxiety of looking at things. Yes. So it's a brilliant crystal to work with for issues of a solar plexus nature, with self-worth, with your own sense of power, with how you want to present yourself. And a lot of us, like, I know at least for me, like, doing some shadow work could give me some anxiety because it's like I'm looking at things in my life that I don't want to see, I've been shying away from. So it's like, it gives me anxiety to, like, look at something that's not comfortable. So I've found that the yellow kunzite's been super, super helpful for that.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
For me, I really like merlinite. For shadow work. This is a raw piece. Hold it up. Yeah. I think it's called gabrite, and I think, but Mystic Merlinite or just Merlinite, Gabbro or something like that.
I'm not sure, like, you want me to hold that one up too?
Scientific name. There we go.
Yeah, so that one that Ariel's holding now is just a polished version of this one. So
it's very they call it merlinite, having to do with, of course, Merlin, but it can be a very intense shadow working stone. So if you're new to shadow work, I would say don't work with the merlinite just yet. Kind of build your way up to it. It's pretty heavy duty. It likes to get in there. It's no holds barred. It will bring up all of the crap, all of the triggers, all of the things. So if you're not ready for that intense level of shadow work, I would not suggest using it at this point in time because it's also tied in with your clairs, your clairvoyance, and your claircognizance as well. If you're especially sensitive, just be mindful about working with merlinite, but it is pretty strong and intense.
I found that intensity of the merlinite is how malachite is for the heart chakra.
Yes.
Like, it just kind of
you're
going to look at everything.
Dig it all out and just...
And for some people, that works. Like, some of us are kind of that warrior energy where we're like, yeah, bring it on. And then some of us are like, you know what? I think I'll just do this one step at a time.
Gently, yeah.
And I know you kind of feel the same way about this one, so we'll do this one together. Smoky quartz. So this is like a little Merkaba, and I don't know if you guys connect to this shape, but this shape is supposed to be the energy field of protection around you. So the shape is very, very helpful. And I mean, you guys know I love quartz. Like, I'm kind of crazy about quartz, but this is a brilliant, brilliant stone for helping to release negativity. So if you find that you have something within you that you're like, oh, this is just gotta go. Like, I don't know why I'm holding on to this. This is a great one for that. It's very grounding in it too. Like, it kind of helps transmute that stuff out of you and then back into the earth, or where you want to send it to. I usually give it back to the earth because the earth knows how to use these energies and utilize it for a good thing.
Yes. For me, smoky quartz, used it going through a breakup was very, very helpful, especially with like getting me to get to sleep and calming and releasing some of this energy. Smoky quartz is also great if you're dealing with some sexual traumas or learning how to accept different aspects or different parts of your sexuality or to develop healthy sexual relationships. So if that is something that's up your alley or that you're considering working on, get you a nice piece of smoky quartz. I love to work with smoky quartz before bed.
Yeah,
That's my favorite time
great.
to use it.
And it's nice because it's gentle. It's not one of those ones that feels like it's just tearing things. Like some crystals.
Like this one.
Yeah. But if you're one of those people that you really are just like, I'm just gonna go full warrior about this. I just want to look at it and be like, let's just get it done.
But have the support and also have gentle tools around you as well. Like we talk about, like the kunzite, for example, the support of people around you, the network of support.
A really good one too for like that supportive environment is also oh my god, prasiolite.
Oh, prasiolite.
Like that green amethyst.
Yeah, Prasiolite.
That one is like when I was connecting with that crystal, I'm like, oh, this is perfect. Like if you are wanting to kind of create that bubble, that space, that where you can allow yourself to be vulnerable, that's one of them. But then also, you guys, rose quartz. This is one of those like crystals that you can...
It's for everything.
Yeah, there's really no wrong answer. It's like, what's going on? Just give it rose quartz. But it also, allowing yourself to be in a space of vulnerability is kind of a super helpful way to allow yourself to release some of that shadow work.
Yes.
And, rose quartz creates that environment as well. It's pretty much safe to use around everybody, even like, young children, like animals. Don't let them eat it, but
yeah, giving that love.
Yeah.
For me, there's some other ones too. Amethyst is great if you're dealing with the overindulging, so food, smoking, drinking, drugs,
Speaking
whatever it is.
It's tea, I promise.
It's tea. It's chai. Strong chai, but it's chai. Overindulgence of any kind. I think maybe even gambling. Like you can use amethyst to get that under control as well. Apache tear if you're dealing with grief.
That's a good one. It's a really good one.
And I think I had another one. Oh, and I feel the need to mention celestite as well.
Oh, yeah, I actually have one right here. I have a little baby one, but you can show it.
To bring in it's really blue. But to bring in like the angelic energies.
Maybe if I hold it closer.
Yeah,
maybe it's just the distance because of the lighting.
Thank you. Yeah, there you go.
Da-da-da-da.
There you go. But yes, to bring in the harmonious angelic energies, your spirit guides, all of those things.
Celestial energies.
To help you in your shadow process. So now we're going to talk about some deities or spirits that would like to help you in your shadow work. So you have Archangel Azrael, who is the angel of death, but he is also about transitions and change and transmuting energies.
Exactly. It's like transmutation's like the one like word that my mind sticks
to
with him. Yeah. It's like transmutation. Yes.
Yes. Love him. There's Hecate, that crone energy, which is great for shadow work, working with the crone energy. So you have maiden, mother, crone, the phases of the moon, the phases of a woman's life. The crone is the wisdom, the darker side, the more shadowy aspects. Hecate is the goddess of the crossroads. She sees all crimes that have been committed, all of those kinds of things. So, but she's great for working with shadow aspects. You have the Morrigan.
She's a very strong warrior energy. The Morrigan. She's brilliant, but she's one
intense.
that
she's got no mess.
Yeah, she's the warrior. Like we're not gonna go so like sweetly into the night,
Yes. But I see her a lot as the washer of the ford more than I see her as the warrior. At least for my work with her, in terms of the washing away the blood, washing away the pain, bringing again that transmutation, bringing the the transition, the change from one thing to another, that in-between state from one phase of life to another, very much with her. Then you have Hale, who's a Norse goddess of the underworld. Half of her is a beautiful woman, half of her is a skeleton. One half is light, one half is dark. So if you're looking to balance your light and your dark energies, or working more with balancing your light aspects and your shadow aspects, Hale is wonderful for that.
It's like Hagalaz with the runes,
Yes.
the H.
Yes,
It's like
H-A-L is how you spell it.
Yeah, and it's the hail, the destruction, but then as the hail melts, the water nourishes the crops. So it is that like it is that duality. Like you have to have some breaking down for some new growth to come in.
Right, like that painful experience or that jarring, shocking moment to get things moving and regenerating and changing and transforming.
Yeah.
To allow new growth to happen. Then there's Persephone, who is Greek, who, went down to the underworld and became Hades' bride pretty much, and gained, she was so innocent. Demeter, her mother, was looking for her. I think she got sucked to the underworld like by a flower or something like that. And, having, been in the underworld and having all of these different experiences with Hades, now she tries to come back in the spring to come be, with her mother. And it's like she cannot reside there anymore because she's had all of these experiences, that she's not as innocent as she was. She had to look at the darker, shadowy aspects of herself. So I think Persephone is great for that. And then...
I personally, I really like working with Ganesha. I feel like it's not just like I need to remove this physical obstacle in my life type of situation, but like the inner obstacles that are preventing us from shining who we are on the inside. And two, I don't align with any specific religion, but I still work with Jesus. I still work with Jesus energy. And I feel like he's just super non-judgmental. Like
just super forgiving. Always.
Yeah.
Like,
there's always love there. And so
this is the Jesus. Jesus.
So, I mean, there's whatever deities or spirits you feel called to. Maybe
animals, vulture for transmuting.
Just gonna say that. Maybe there's some animals that you really feel embody, unconditional love and transmutation, like you said. Like there's no wrong answer, I feel like.
Yeah, like what do they have to teach you about your shadow work? So like for me, I had Fox coming to me for like a long time, and I'm like, what is up? Like, what are you trying to teach me? But it was part of the shadow work message. So know that your animal spirits or animals that you see, your spirit animal, even if they just come to you for a brief amount of time, they can be giving you a message to what you need to work on subconsciously or with your shadow. Mm-hmm. You have to bring light to the shadow, and you have to bring shadow to the light to be able to heal this stuff. Because if you just suppress it, you're holding on to it, you're not releasing it. So that shadow is just staying stuck and stagnant in your body.
Mm-hmm. And you can also, like we had talked about before, like get tarot readings. Mm-hmm. You can get shamanic healings to help with shadow work. You can get counseling, therapy, psychic readings. There's lots of things you can do to help with shadow work. Yeah, sometimes, we have some shadow that we need to release, that someone had passed away and they may not have passed away maybe we forgot to say something we wanted to say, or we really wish we would have done something differently. So there are times too that you can, mediumship readings can really be helpful for clearing up some of that as well.
Yes. So then there's some moon phases is the last thing we're going to talk about today for doing some shadow work. So I think the full moon is the perfect time for shadow work. Things have reached completion. One cycle is starting to end, and you're going to start another one. Mm-hmm. Also the waning moon. So when the moon, has reached its full capacity and it begins to make its journey dark, as that is a time for releasing and, letting things go and all of that. And then there's also the dark moon, when you don't see the moon in the sky at all, because that is probably the epitome of the time for shadow work. When there is no light in the sky, you just have to embrace that darkness. There is no moonlight to light your path. Mm-hmm. You have to be your own torch in that instance. I
always think of with the moon cycles too, like, as it's going into the new moon, it's the dark moon. You're like digging out. You're getting to the bottom of that barrel or the bottom of whatever you're digging into. And then you have that it's completely empty at this point too. So it's almost a way you can kind of like, if you want to do it through that cycle, like do something on a daily basis through that last 2-week cycle.
That's a great
to
idea.
Kind of like help empty that that place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yes. So waning moon and dark moon, especially the crone aspect of the goddess, which is closely related to shadow work. If you choose to work with, let's say, Hecate, who is a crone goddess, then maybe working with the dark moon would be more appropriate for you with your shadow work.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there are no rules, there are no regulations. Go with what feels good for you. Make sure you're safe and surrounded in comfort and love and with people you trust as you begin this journey, because it can be very triggering. It can bring up some stuff, especially if you're not fully ready to go there. You never know what the shadow is going to bring up.
Yeah, and honestly, like, I really want to say you're never alone when you go through your shadow work. You may have a friend who's going through something similar, or, you know, call somebody that you love, or just call somebody, talk to somebody. I mean, you just, if you feel that you need something, definitely take care of yourself. Take care of yourself. Nurture yourself. Love yourself. That's why you're talking about, you know, the rose quartz and just the love and you know, allowing taking care of yourself through all of this, because it is you live in this form. This is your life. So, you know, when it all comes down to it, it is about you. We care about the ones we care about the people around us, and we love our friends and we love our family, but you still have to live with you. So you need to be okay with yourself and comfortable with yourself. So take care of yourself, please.
Care of you first. Yes.
Fill your cup before you fill another.
That's my favorite phrase ever. Yes. Alrighty, well, thank you so much for watching. This has been the Shadow Work episode number 4 of Mystic Minds. I am Ariel. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, under Maven Unmasked, and my website is www.mavenunmasked.com.
Yeah, she's got lots of cool events on there too.
Lots of fun things
keep
coming
an eye
this October, from readings to workshops, a Samhain meditation to honor the ancestors, all kinds of things.
That's
so
perfect.
Check it out.
It's a perfect time for ancestors too. And then you guys can reach me at greenlightmessages.com. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter as well. So if you want to reach out and get a reading from me, or you're interested in shamanism or anything else, don't be afraid to reach out to us.
Yes. If there's an area you'd like us to look into or for us to talk about, please leave a comment below, and maybe we'll just make an episode on your topic.
Ooh, yeah, that would be fun. What do you guys want to see? What do you guys want to know?
Yes, we'd love to hear from you. But thank you so much. It has been an honor and a pleasure.
Yeah, always.
Right. Bye, you guys.
Bye.